since I have you, will you stick your head in because you're so cool? And Joanna is Michael's wife. She's an editor, just won awards for The Bear, did Molli and Max in the future. Okay, thank you for doing that. Sorry. She has a deadline. She has more important things to do. So you guys, I've made a habit of just barging into people's apartments, and this is Michael, the director of Molli and Max in the future. It's like killing it in the world. It went to South by Southwest, which is like a top 5 film festival. It's just like one of the cool ones, you know? It has a 98% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. That's a big deal.
It's true.
Like that, and I just confirmed. I think it was like 97 at one point, and we went up a percent. So this is like huge. It was a NYTimes Critic Pick. You're the writer, director, visual effects, and also producer.
It's true.
You're wearing a lot of hats, sir. How are you doing this?
I'm good. I don't know, little by little, baby steps, I think. You kind of just fill in the space where it needs to be filled. And you know, I had a really great team of producers, so I was not the only producer. And I also split a lot of the visual effects work with my DP, Zach Stoltzfus. Okay. So it really was a team effort, but a lot of people wore a lot of different hats, and it was exhausting.
But also, what's interesting about that is when you're wearing all those hats, as difficult as it is, I would imagine there's a part of it that's nice because you're in control of everything.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's really nice to not have to get anything like approved by anybody else, and you can kind of just do whatever you want. And, you know, to me, like, I am always very cognizant of like what the audience is feeling, and I care about whether or not, you know, the joke that I'm trying to sell is landing or stuff like that. So I believe in kind of testing your material and getting feedback, and not just being like a closed, everything I think is the right thing is always the right thing. So, you know, I think having a feedback process is really important, but it's really nice to not have to listen to any feedback that I don't necessarily absolutely want to. So, which is not always the case. You know, I work in commercials and I worked on other projects, and often you have to, you know, like that's part of collaboration, sometimes compromising and finding a happy medium and really fighting for the things that you really care about, but still, you know, when it's your own movie and it's a small enough film, you can do whatever you want, and it's great.
Yeah, and just like nice to make sure that your vision is coming to life in the way that you want it to, you know, and like never having to compromise. Like I think about that as an actor. It's like you go in, you do your work, but at the end of the day, somebody else is editing it together, you do it, and then you literally hand it off, so you don't have any control, really, you know? So it's nice to be able to be like, this is what I see in my head, and I can like make sure it all works out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's always going to be something that's lost in translation from your imagination to reality, and but the more people you have to kind of go through to have filter that, the higher the chances are of something potentially going wrong. Yeah. And so, I mean, doing 90% of the VFX in the movie, me and Zach basically did 90% of the VFX from start to finish, and that's really nice on one hand. It's a ton of work and was really exhausting, but it also, you know, we didn't have to explain what we wanted to anybody else, and then they didn't have to explain it to somebody else, and, you know, there is that kind of game of creative telephone, and stuff can get lost, and then you have to spend all this time kind of going back, and so our process still took a very long time, but we were able to cut out a lot of that back and forth because it was just me giving myself notes or giving Zach notes, or him giving me notes, and there was something really nice about that too. Oh my god, 100%. Okay, really fast, because the effects is such a huge part of this movie, but just to give you a little backstory in case you haven't watched it, and you should ASAP. It's a Harry Met Sally, but in the future. So there are all of these special effects that I even watched all of your videos on Instagram to see how you did it, and it's fascinating, but it still is blowing my mind. And I think I'm kind of intelligent enough, and I'm like, how did you do this? Do you have any of these things here? Yeah, I can.
Can we see some things?
Let me go grab the...
Should we take it with you so you don't have to bring?
No, it's okay. I can just grab it real quick.
Because it took you 18 months to create these things, correct?
It's true.
Oh my gosh, yay! Wait, I've been wanting to see these.
So these are two of the spaceships, miniature spaceships from the film. This one is Molly's spaceship, the titular character, and this is Max's spaceship, which blows up in the first couple minutes. But yeah, these are all basically made by hand. We used an approach that's called kit bashing, where you kind of take a variety of different model kits and then combine them together and tape and glue them and then paint it so that it looks like it was designed that way. You know, like this tail is from a certain model kit that we just turned upside down. These engines are from a different one. This car base is actually a smart car little model that you can buy online for $10.
Oh my God.
And yeah, put it all together and then put it in front of a green screen and film it, and you have a little miniature spaceship.
Wait, that's insane. Was any
It
of
is
this...
delicate, so just be careful.
Wow. Okay, was any of this done with a 3D printer?
Yeah, definitely. So
see, that blows my mind.
Yeah, so I mean, like a lot of the little pieces on top were printed with a 3D printer, and you know, on here too, you know, there's a bunch of, it's called greeble, which is like the technical term, which is for little doodads that make it look complex.
And that's what you paint, like literally glue on?
Yeah, so this is just like assembled with super glue, and you know, this is like a Jaguar car model kit that we turned into it, and this is, you know, an engine from a different kit, and and then you just add little details and you paint it, and Zach built both of these. So, you know, it was, but it's kind of like emblematic of the philosophy from the rest of the film, which is, you know, we just tried to keep everything practical, everything handmade, and really kind of avoided CG at all costs. But
you did all of this in preparation, like before you filmed, right?
Yeah. So we spent about 18 months kind of building out all of the models for the film. And so, you know, part of it was like a research phase where we were like, okay, we need a spaceship. What are the different things we could combine to do that? And, you know, we knew we were going to be filming in cars for, you know, the live action part of it. And so it was like, okay, we should have something that at least looks like a car, but can be converted. And so yeah, we spent about 18 months kind of like one day a week we would go shoot, another day a week we would composite, and we would do testing and kind of figure out like what was working and what wasn't working. And then we would come back the next week and build something new. And that kind of extended pre-production period was really nice, to be honest, because you could mess around and there wasn't like a super harsh deadline breathing down our necks, and we could really experiment and find kind of like what looked the best. And for the most part, we had like a couple of small false starts, but so much of that stuff ended up in the film, and you know, it really was really fun too. It was a fun way to make a movie, and
oh my gosh.
So we spent 18 months building all of that, and then we built a lot of the backgrounds in like we made video clips, and then we would put those video clips up on either an LED screen or rear screen projection, and on set, yeah.
Okay,
and
so they could kind of see the world on the day that they were filming.
Exactly, yeah. So once we had our actors there, they could turn and look and see where they were, like what world they were standing in. And so,
that is so cool.
we did a combination of that, and then also just like traditional green screen, and which is a little bit less fun, but gives you a little bit more flexibility afterwards.
So yeah, this is wild. So this in real life, true or false? Honda Civic.
True.
That's what I heard.
Yes.
I watched Sasha's interview, and she was like, it's a Honda Civic in real life. But this is what you see, like the first moment his head slams against the... I'm not giving anything away. It's in the trailer. But like when they meet and he like... That's this little screen right there. That's that little...
Definitely.
It's really fun to see this in real life and then see what it becomes in the film. You really kill it.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think there's like the thing I always talk about is the Venn diagram of fast, cheap, and good, and you can only kind of have two. So if you want it to be good and cheap, then you need to take a lot of time to do it. Yes. And you know, I think you can do any of those things, but we just didn't have the money, so it was kind of a like, let's just spread it out over a long period of time and really kind of chip away at it little by little and learn the things that we have to learn that we don't already know, because when you have a deadline, you need to know your stuff and you need to move quickly. And, you know, with this, it was really about kind of drawing that out.
Yeah. I feel like it's an homage to old sci-fi films, right?
Yeah, 100%.
There feels like there's like a lot of Easter egg references to other films. I don't want to give them away, but it's really fun to watch it and be like, oh, that's from Tron, or that's from this,
Yes.
you know, like
Yeah.
whatever. Obviously, that was intentional, right?
Definitely, yeah.
How many Easter eggs are there?
I honestly haven't counted. There's dozens.
I feel like this is something we need to like have a competition over. It's like, who can find the most Easter eggs?
Yeah. No, I mean, I never want them to be distracting and to be something that takes anybody out of the movie, but
No.
I think it's one of those things that I love if, like, on a second or third viewing, people can notice something that wasn't there, that they didn't see the first time. And, you know, I love just kind of packing a frame with as many jokes as possible, whether it's like a joke in the production design or something that's like a small thing in the background. So I think, you know, to me that it's a fun little kind of inside joke, and, you know, as long as it doesn't kind of distract from everything else. Then,
no, you're so immersed in the story, and honestly, even the special effects, like as great as they are, I feel like take a backseat to the story, like in a good way. Like they're the backdrop, they're not the focus. Yeah. Like it really is about this love story being reimagined in the future. Yeah,
definitely.
And like their chemistry, I was actually talking about it with Jonah, another person that we both know, Jonah Feingold, and he does a lot of rom-coms, and it's like, obviously, it's all about that chemistry, and finding that is hard. I feel like I heard you in an interview talk about it being like pregnancy or giving, wait, what was the reference? Of like finding two people that work so well. It was like the Deadline interview that you did. I don't know, maybe we should skip this part.
I'm trying to remember. I mean, I think when you collaborate with anybody on a long-term project, it's like interviewing someone to like basically get pregnant together, because you're going to be going on a journey that is potentially a years long thing. And I mean, with actors, I feel like it's, you know, maybe just a month or two, but you are going to be with them through pre-production, through production, and then through the promotion and release of the film. And you really want to find people that are nice, that are kind, that are respectful of your time and everyone else's time, and know how to kind of like be a team player, because especially when it's a small movie, you need to, everybody, it's not as glamorous as a big movie, and you have to wear multiple hats, and sometimes it's not comfortable, and you need to have people that kind of are in it for the right reasons. So I think whenever you're talking to actors or about being in a project or something, that's like something that's really important to me. And because at the end of the day, like, you have to be the one spending every day for at least a month, usually, talking to them and working with them. And if they aren't, you know, open to taking feedback or collaborative, or, you know, excited to be there, then it's going to be a lot harder than it already is. And it's already very, very hard.
I was just going to say, a difficult actor or anybody on set can really shift the entire dynamic.
Exactly.
And then it's just not fun.
Yeah.
And why would we want that after we work so hard?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I also feel like there's so many talented people that we don't need to waste time with a talented, not kind person, because there's enough talent. And I feel like we see that
exactly
everywhere. But like New York especially, like all of these actors, Kate Geller, the casting director, who she's found in this film, are just all like really hearty, good, solid New York actors. Michael Chernus, Aaron Dark. Is Zasha from? I mean, she is, right?
She lived in New York for a long time. She's from LA, actually, originally, and then lived in New York for a long time, and then she just moved down to Florida.
She feels like a New York actor to me.
I think she identifies kind of as a New York actor.
That. Yeah. Okay. So. And Aristotle Atari?
Yeah,
he's so good.
He's from LA too, actually.
What? And I thought he was a New York actor. Well, all right, my whole philosophy is thrown out the window.
Well, when we cast him, he was here for SNL, and so he was living here and working as a local.
I think he has a New York vibe.
Yeah, you know? Yeah. He does not like New York.
Oh, he doesn't?
No, I think he likes LA a lot more.
Oh.
So,
Right.
but I mean, if you only ever live in Manhattan and don't get out of Manhattan, then I
Yeah.
think it's its own kind of little universe. And so I was kind of trying to encourage him to explore Brooklyn and explore Queens and see all the different sides of New York. So I haven't talked to him in a while if he still feels that way. But I remember when we were talking, he wasn't anti New York. I think he was just pro LA.
Okay. Have you always lived in New York?
I grew up in Los Angeles, but I
Okay.
moved to New York to go to NYU.
Okay.
And so I've stuck around here ever since, but my parents are still in Los Angeles, so
Okay.
I can kind of go back easily, which is really
That's
nice. And I'm very, very fortunate that I can like have a place to sleep there and a car I can use, so it makes kind of bicoastal a little bit easier.
I like the bicoastal. That's nice.
Yeah.
If you have that choice, it's a good one.
Have you ever tried LA?
I lived there for 5 years.
Oh, really?
And I lived on the east side. Like, I lived in Los Feliz, and I feel like if I didn't find Los Feliz, I don't think I would have, like, lasted as long.
Yeah.
I will say I like LA more the more you work in this industry, because now when I go, I feel like I have friends, whereas when I first moved there,
it's a hard place to move and not know but anybody.
Yeah. Well, because everyone's in their car. This is not like a new thought. It's not like this is novel. But like in New York, like you're all in it together.
Yeah.
You're all on the subway.
It's true.
Sweating it out, you know.
It's true.
Like in LA, you're in your nice little air-conditioned cars.
Bubble.
Yeah. So, anyways. So when you finished this film, did you know how special it was?
I mean, I think you...
How could you not? Right?
You hope that it resonates, and but you never know. Honestly, I mean, we showed it to friends, and I think my friends are all like, most of them are creative professionals and will be honest to a certain point and tell me when something's not working. And so, I think it's a great movie, but there are plenty of really good movies that don't get kind of the accolades that we've gotten. So I never take it for granted, because I spent 10 years making short films and none of them ever got into a major festival.
Wow.
Some of them did really well online and they created opportunities in other ways. So it was really nice. But, I think, it's not just a meritocracy. There is some luck that is involved in it. And I'm just really happy that we got very lucky with the response to this movie.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, 100%. So what was that moment like then when you got the acceptance?
It was like a huge relief. Yeah. I mean, we just...
Was it a relief though? That's interesting too.
Yes.
Not just excitement, but like also relief.
Both. Yeah. I think they're sometimes the same thing.
Yeah. You're like, thank God, because it's validating, and then it makes you feel like everyone's time was also...
Exactly. I mean, and that's the thing, is that you're asking people to do so much, and like the money that they're getting for it is never going to be as much as they would get on another project, but to have their work celebrated and appreciated is the payment for it. And so to know that we were going to premiere at a top festival and then get the movie out into the world and have a really good reception was really validating. And we also, we found out that we got into South by, and then we had 8 weeks until the deadline was, where we had to turn in the final film. And so we still had, I think, 350 shots that hadn't been completed, which is, there's 900 in the movie total. So it was only about 2/3 of the way done, but that's just the VFX side of it. You still have to do sound, you still have to do color. And so after we got in, after we celebrated and had a really good time,
You're like, back to work.
Yeah, so the next day it was like, okay, we got to finish the movie in time. And so we finished the movie 3 days before we premiered it. And, that was a mad dash to the finish line, because it's really hard to budget how long a visual effects shot will take, because sometimes you think that it will be very quickly, and it is not, and vice versa. Certain shots that I thought were going to be very complicated actually ended up being very simple, and it's really impossible to know, because sometimes it's, something that happens in the corner of the shot that just won't work, or there's a bug within the program, and so it's, we tried to come up with kind of a schedule, but it was really just stay up as late as you can. We got a second computer, put it in there in the bedroom next to the first one, and we were rendering on one computer while working on the other computer, and Zach had, you know, 2 computers at his apartment too that he was working on doing the same exact thing. And so, you know, we wanted to finish the movie at a high level, but it was a mad dash to the finish line.
Was that the most stressful part of the whole thing?
No, it actually wasn't, because it was like, you know, worst case scenario, like one of the VFX shots like doesn't, it is like a little rough around the edges, and like we could always go back and fix it later. And you want to present the best thing possible, but it's like at the end of the day, like those are fixable things. And you know, I think I'm really happy that I think we did, like, we're able to finish on time and like finish it at a level, and we didn't have to go back and do anything. But I think the most stressful part is just shooting the actors, like, and principal photography is like, it's just, I mean, that was when I like curled up into a ball and like wanted to die, because you're just like not getting enough sleep. It's just constant stress. There's constant things like going wrong, and it's nobody's fault. It's just like, you know, on the very first day of shooting, our first AD got COVID, and
oh my god, no.
Yeah, and
that's like the nightmare scenario.
Yeah, so I had to be my own first AD for the whole first week of shooting, and it sucked.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and I feel like what people don't, if you don't know this world as much, but like the first AD's responsibility is like keeping your days, and like sometimes you have to lay down the law in a way that you might not want to be as the director. You know, like sometimes it's nice to have those separate.
Well, even just like it's just a logistical mental load to carry, to know exactly how much time you have, where you're going next, to be the person communicating.
Keep track of your time while also being like present in the moment where you need to be looking and seeing everything.
Exactly.
Holy crap, that's insane.
You know, it's obviously like no one's fault that she got COVID, but it's like that is stressful. And then that first week there was also the heat wave, and so it was like 110 degrees.
Oh my
God. Inside the studio, and we were shooting on these LED screens that are huge heaters essentially, and so everybody was just sweating profusely. And then because of the entire city was using electricity for their air conditioners, the power went out. And so it was like, you know, we lost like 2 hours on one day because the power went out. Everything had to be rebooted. It's like it's a digital system. Everything was overheating, and so.
Wait, you lost 2 hours in a day?
Yeah.
Losing 20 minutes kills your day, and then you lose 2 hours, and then you're thinking of overtime, and with overtime that just means more money that you don't have to give.
Exactly. So that was the hardest part, definitely, was just shooting the movie and getting all the pieces there, and then once we had the pieces, putting them together was fun. And
this was your first feature, right?
Yeah,
so this was a big choice to do such a, like, you didn't choose to start off softly, you know what I mean? Like, let's just do like the rom-com. You just, you know, you went all in at the beginning. What an incredible experience, but I'm sure with that comes a lot of stress.
Yeah. No, it was a really ambitious movie, but we also planned it out, like, and spent those 18 months kind of figuring out a lot of these things. And
did that start in COVID or no?
Yeah, so I mean, I had another film that I was trying to make for a quick 7 years, and that was an adaptation of my thesis film from NYU, and I really wanted that to be my first movie, and it was also very ambitious, but we were trying to get like $3 to $5 million for it, and we had some great actors attached, we had some people that were interested in financing it, and then COVID hit, and the entire thing kind of fell apart, and you know, like everyone else, I was just kind of stuck inside watching movies, and I rewatched When Harry Met Sally, and such a good one. I just was kind of struck by, like, you never know what's going on in the world around the characters. It's just a story about two people, which is really nice and can feel like comfort food, but it was weird to watch it in the middle of lockdown because you don't know who's like president, you don't know like what's going on outside, and it was like we're living in a time where it was like every single day it was just check the news, like what's happening, and it was just very stressful and scary and overwhelming, and I think a lot of people kind of like leaned on their partners or their friends or like their personal relationships to kind of help them get through it. And so it also was a time where, I'm someone who my career is like a very big part of my identity, and maybe even it was too much part of my identity at that point. And I think COVID forced everybody to kind of like stop, and that was like, nobody's working, nobody's doing anything, and it's not your fault. Figure out like who you are without that part of you.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
force that. Yeah.
So it was kind of a like, and that kind of was making me think also about kind of, how do you update When Harry Met Sally? It's like, well, what are the things that we talk about that, they have conversations in that movie that are great. It's a classic, but it's like, I don't know if you could have those exact conversations in a movie today. They wouldn't really be that groundbreaking, because can men and women be friends? It's like, well, yeah, of course they can. So it's kind of like, it was like, well, what are the things that everyone's talking about? It's, about masculinity and polyamory and toxic relationships and, power couples, or like the idea of, celebrity relationships, and what are these things that I think are interesting and very current and modern, and that I haven't seen in a film before, that we can kind of explore and make a movie that kind of touches on some of those topics.
Yeah, and throw in some cults and,
Yeah, definitely.
It was like just so fun. Do you feel pressure now that you achieved this? Does that make you excited for the next thing, or a little nervous because there's pressure to like live up to that in some way?
I mean, I don't really feel pressure. I mean, I put pressure on myself where I just want to go make movies because it's fun and it's why I'm on this earth. But I feel like, I don't know. I mean, we've been really successful with Molli and Max, but it's also like kind of a insular kind of success where I don't feel like the whole world is like watching to wait and see what I'm doing next. It's kind of like, my friends and family, and hopefully we'll build a cult following over the years. But, I think the pressure of the first one, nothing will ever kind of be like it, because at least now I have the confidence of that one, and it's under my belt, and
like look at the obstacles that you overcame, and it not only worked, but like it worked really well.
Thank you. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm kind of just more excited for the next one and hope that we can get it made. And
do you think it'll be easier to get funding now? I mean, with a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, I'd be like, that's my...
I hope so.
Give me money, please.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's always going to be really, really difficult.
Yeah.
So, there's like Martin Scorsese and Terrence Malick movies that like still haven't found their money yet. And,
I mean, that's wild.
So I think that's something where like everyone talks about their first feature as like a stepping stone to bigger things, and it can do that, and it has already kind of opened up some opportunities for me, but I think it's hard every time, and I think I at least feel more confident kind of going into those conversations to being able to point to something and say, look, we have done it before, and
look.
Yeah, exactly, and we can pull it off at a high level, and if we can do this for this amount, like imagine what we can do with more. So it gives me that confidence, but I think there's always going to be people, that it's going to be hard to convince people no matter what. And, if you have a huge hit like Get Out or something, then people are banging down your door, begging to give you money to do something. But, having a more moderate success, or even if it's a critical success or creative success, like really what people look at is financial success, and it's going to be a struggle to get anything unless you have that like once in a career kind of lightning in a bottle moment where you have a huge breakout hit and then everybody wants to give you money.
I will say the big deal that it not only like went to South by Southwest, but it was also in all theaters, like all around the country. Like that just is so rare anymore, you know? So many of these films go to like these great film festivals and then end up on streaming services, which is great, but it's also rare that you had this opportunity that people could go see it in a big theater.
Yeah.
So like that's also a success, and I would hope have brought some money in for the film, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. No, and I mean, I never even expected a theatrical release, so I was really excited that we got one, and we played in 40 cities, and
that's such a big deal.
So it was really, really cool, and people, friends from around the country were texting me and sending me photos of themselves going to see it, so that was awesome, and that also helped us generate a lot of press and stuff, but I think like, again, there's like, levels of success in terms of like what financiers necessarily look at, and you know, I hope that we can demonstrate that we've done that, and we have made a sustainable movie that's going to make its money back. But it's you know, often people are not worried about like breaking even. They only want something if it's like a unicorn.
Yeah, that's wild. I was doing one actually with Ed Swick like a couple months ago, and he was talking about Blood Diamond, and it like made $40 million like very quickly. And even the studio heads at that point were like, "Oh, that's a great film, but like this is the last of its kind." And that was making $40 million, and that wasn't enough because now we exist in this Marvel era where unless you're making $1 billion, no one's interested. And that feels scary to me because it feels like it's going to suppress creativity, or like the films that people actually get to see.
Yeah,
you know?
It's all warped. It's kind of insane. But those are some of the things that like you can't necessarily have a lot of control over, and so you have to kind of figure out, I think, a way to navigate that world and figure out how to make the stuff that you want to make within kind of your means and
like doing this, you know what I mean? It's like you gotta just figure it out and learn all the other things you need to do to make it.
Exactly. Yeah, and because I think like you can kind of spend your whole life waiting around for other people to kind of give you permission to do stuff, or you can decide to make a podcast, or you know, do something creative that is fulfilling, that takes you interesting places, and you know, you learn stuff along the way and make new connections by doing that.
Yeah. Can we talk about one thing before we finish, just because you mentioned it, and it's something that I think about and struggle with sometimes, but just like when you are a director or an actor or an artist, whatever, is so much a part of my identity, right? So if like things aren't going great in my career, it can feel like a struggle. How do you deal with that? Even though you can go and be a director and like pick this up and do it, do you still struggle with that? Or
yeah, I mean, 100%, definitely. I mean, I think that this movie kind of came out of that, where it was like I felt like I spent 7 years trying to make a bigger movie and trying to get people to give me permission and give me money to make a big film, and I was too scared to go make a small film, and I didn't want to mess it up because I was worried about it, and I made so many shorts over the years, but in my head I was like, oh, making a feature is completely different, but it's actually very similar, or it can be very similar, where you make it with your friends, you figure out what you have access to, you figure out creative ways to kind of stretch your money as far as it can go, and you go out and do it. And I think the other thing is that like in that COVID period, I found a secondary passion, which was making cartoons and drawing cartoons. And it's like a creative hobby that is satisfying, that I can do in an hour, and I don't need anyone else to give me money to go do it. And, you know, I think everybody should have like a secondary creative hobby that is just for fun and isn't, you know, some kind of career builder necessarily, but that is just interesting and satisfying. So I think that's really important. And then I think also just making sure that you take time to do other things and have other interests and get out of your, you know, kind of tunnel vision of like, this is the only thing that matters. And I think you need to have that kind of dedication in order to build a career, but at the same time, like it can be very suffocating and can make you less interesting too, which then you know, comes back and messes you up in another way.
Yeah. That was really great. I love that. While we're always like looking beyond to see what we can achieve, like if you just sit in this moment and look around you and try to build a community with the people, because I think that's like when I look at your film, it's like your wife is working as your editor, she's fantastic. And a lot of these other people are people in your community.
100%. And I think that's the other thing is like, you know, I was stuck in this thing of like, oh, I need to get other people to help me. I need to get big, famous people or powerful people to believe in me in order to get something to go. And it's like, no, you know, I went to film school and I have this great, you know, group of people, and you can find people that are kind of at your level that want to be making stuff, and they're going to work so much harder and put so much more of themselves into a project than somebody who, you know, if your movie never gets made, they won't lose a blink of sleep.
Totally. Thank you for doing this with me. This is
Of
so
course,
fun.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, you guys, check it out if you have not already. It's so good. It's definitely like worth seeing, and like you said multiple times, because there's so many like little Easter eggs in it.
Thank you.
This is so fun.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.